And I remember there was like some crazy finish to a game. Like it was pandemonium. And there's no reason, this is what Madden called out, but he was like, there's 2 footballs on the field. Dirk, the salary cap often forces NFL teams to do a little bit of what we would call a haircut. Well, I would say the Buffalo Bills today went from the Mark Davis to the George Costanza. They lopped a whole healthy amount of hair off. And they ended up cutting ties with Tre'Davious White, an all-pro cornerback who, granted, had an Achilles tendon tear, so there's a lot of uncertainty there. Mitch Morse and Jordan Poyer, among others. Now, these are 3 cornerstones in the franchise, Dirk. I mean, this definitely now is Josh Allen's team. In fact, it's odd because now it really is like Allen and Diggs are the main players with continuity. The Bills are starting to sort of lose a little bit of their identity with these 3 being cut. What do you think of this?
Mike, I think that this is inevitable when you're starting at $41 million in the hole, right, with cap space, even after the expansion of the, additional $30 million that went into this year's cap space or overall salary cap. They had to restructure contracts. They had to let folks go, right? But what I think you're going to have to see here is that this almost solidifies that the first round pick is probably going to be the likes of like Coleman, the Florida State wide receiver. It's going to be the likes of that, where they're going to have to be an offensive team. They're shifting away from a heavily defensive oriented team to they're going to have to get a ton of firepower on that offense, which is weird. When's the last time you saw a championship team built off of pure offense?
I would say the Chiefs almost went that route a few years ago, but if you look at the Chiefs this past year, the Super Bowl team, it was really the defense that was what was sort of their linchpin in the postseason. The defense was really good throughout. I think, Dirk, it is a little concerning for Buffalo. They do need to hit on some picks. Now they do have Diggs for 1 more season, but they're probably going to have to cut ties with him after next year as well, you would think. Now, they did catch a break because, out of the kindness of his heart, Von Miller decided to restructure his contract to where I believe he's only guaranteed $1 million next year. He can earn up to $20 million in incentives, but that means if he's earning that money, he's playing really well. So Von Miller will probably be with the Bills next year, not costing them a whole lot. The question is, Dirk, does Buffalo have enough star power on this team to contend with the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs or, let's say, the Houston Texans with the addition of Saquon Barkley, which may be a thing?
They're going to have to hit on draft picks, right? They have to hit on draft picks this year. And they're going to have to get the likes of either free agent signings that are bargain free agent signings that then show up and just outperform any projection. Thinking back to like Kansas City, do you remember when the Honey Badger was, kind of the linchpin of that? I mean, that's later in his career, and I think no one expected that performance. Now people will probably hate on that comment, but I don't think anybody expected him to be at that level, that stage in his career. And it's going to have to be things like that where they're just hitting on, bargain signings. Because I just, I love the Bills, I love Josh Allen, but I worry about where they have put themselves with the structuring of most of their contracts and where they are in the salary cap. They are not a team like Washington, obviously, where they can just go ahead and sign whoever they want. And we've talked about it how many times this year. I just am very worried about what this looks like. I don't see how this team can compete for a Super Bowl at this point, and I hope I'm wrong. But I'm going to compare this, if they do sign offensive players, Mike, I'm going to compare this team to the 2013 Broncos.
Here's where I disagree, Dirk. The 13 Broncos were offensive loaded, but people also forget that when they played in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, they were down 5 starters, and Champ Bailey was playing with a Liz Frank injury that ended his career. So essentially, the Broncos defense was like, Denver had a pretty good defense on paper too, but they were down Von Miller, they were down Chris Harris Jr. They were down Derek Wolfe. They were down Vickerson. They were down Raheem Moore. Like, I mean, they were like banged up. Not to mention they had lost Ryan Clady. They had lost Dan Copen, the original center. They had Manny Ramirez, not the baseball player, but the other guy playing center for them. He was a converted guard who came over and played center for the whole season, and it worked out pretty well until the Super Bowl. And then, well, you remember how that one went. No, in any case, while I do see where you're headed with that, Buffalo is not as good of a roster as the 2013 Broncos, who were kind of a super team in a way. But
going into that season, honestly, the likes of Julius Thomas was completely unknown. They expected that type of performance out of him? No way. I mean, looking back on hindsight, it looks like an absolute super team, which it was, at least offensively. But, you know, that's my point. They're going to have to hit on, you know, bargain types of players in free agency or in signings in order to make this team really shine. And I mean, it's now looking at like the likes of Kincaid's first round draft pick. Is that a bust at this point, Mike? I mean, it's things like that. They can't miss like that. They can't. Like,
I don't know that Kincaid is a bust. I think he started to come on at the end of the year. Backing it up though, Dirk, you have to, now we're going like 12 years back in time. So it's been a while, but Julius Thomas was actually a Broncos draft pick. He had been in the system for like 2 years before the Manning season where he blew up. But I think a pick on that team that is a good one for comparison, or a couple of them actually. So the Broncos picked up Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie at cornerback. He was like a good free agent guy who was like a vet, kind of came in as a bargain. The same thing, if you'll recall, the Broncos had a nice little issue with technology that involved a fax machine and lost Elvis Dumervil. So to replace him, they brought in Sean Phillips, who actually, again, as a veteran, was quite good as a defensive end on a value contract. That's the kind of thing the Bills are probably going to have to do. I'm not sure what the market is like, though, and what sorts of players are going to command things. Buffalo did, it appears, also do quite well in their running back needs. You know, they've got a talented young running back, but if they wanted to try and look that way, I don't know. I mean, you think about it, you're up against it with the cap here, Dirk, and he might command too much, but Austin Eckler is like the 5th or 6th best running back available now. You wonder what giving Josh Allen a guy like that as a weapon would be like. I don't know if they can do it, but Von Miller did free up some space, so it's an interesting possibility.
Dude, even if they can get the likes of Deonta Foreman and get a change of pace, like just a power running smash back, do you know what I'm saying? And then have James Cook as well, who is pretty nimble. I think that's the type of thing I'm talking about, where you're getting guys that literally... Deonta Foreman, when he was coming into the league, I thought he was going to be so good. And then he had that Achilles injury, right? And then he plays pretty well for the Bears. Like, if that's the type of signing they can get and then get huge production out of him... Look, I'm not saying that they need to base their whole freaking team off Deonta Foreman, right? I'm just saying they're going to have to hit on people that no one expects are going to be all-stars and turn them into all-stars.
Yeah, it's kind of like last year. I mean, they had the most durable man in the world, Latavius Murray, in their backfield. But he's the kind of guy who's probably playing for like $1 million or something last year. And that's the thing that Buffalo's going to need.
What happens if they sign Russell Wilson and they go into a 2-quarterback system? He signs the league minimum.
I think that they have, and this is breaking news, Dirk, they have pretty much written that out of possibility because they have signed Mitch Trubisky. And you better believe it. So if Josh Allen goes down, guess what? The Nick Foles effect might just happen, and Mitch Trubisky is going to lead the Bills to the Super Bowl. You heard it here first.